This podcast is making me thirsty. The number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is Two Up and Two Down. Here's our producer, Chris, to start us off.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Two Up and Two Down. And today we are doing the episode called The Truth from Season 3. And Chris, why don't you start us off with your first up?
All right, folks. Two up, two down, two positives, two negatives as analysts, okay, here, not as fans. So here's the deal. The Truth, second episode of Season 3, directed by famous comedian David Steinberg, and, of course, written by Elaine Pope. Only 16.7 million people watched this episode. Unbelievable, right? We all know the Frogger did over 30 million, right? And just a little more history here. 16.7 million, yet it went against Jake the Fat Man, which Jerry always referenced that night, and Doogie Howser that same night. So just think about what you're watching that night. So anyway, here we go. For me, one of my favorite little scenes. George comes back. He mentions what happened, and the little dynamic between George and Elaine right here, where what if someone said that about you, said something bad about you, and George got so defensive. What are you gonna say? I'm bald? No, tell me. And then Elaine comes out with the incredible line, "You're extremely careful with money. I'm cheap." And George goes berserk. "Oh, when I was working, I spent, baby." That, 45 seconds to a minute, just that's Seinfeld right there. Sums up George, sums up his paranoia, how Elaine thinks of him, all in packaged in that one little exchange. So for me, that's my first up.
Great stuff there. So yeah, definitely deserves to be an up. And Tony, over to you. What's your first up?
Yeah, you threw me a curveball there. I wasn't expecting him to go there. I mean, not because it's not an up. It was going to be my number one up too. I just didn't think it'd be his go-to up off the bat, and it's he summed it up perfectly. I mean, I spent, baby. Jerry. Oh yeah, we have champagne, limousines, caviar. Unbelievable. This was prime George, as he mentioned. Season 3, the heart of his struggles with unemployment and everything else. There's a lot here in this episode. Elaine Pope wrote it. I got a lot here written down. I'm gonna go, and I hope this isn't too well. I'm gonna go with the opening scene with George and the woman. It's kind of a big scene because I'm going kind of the whole thing. Just first him to kind of just like, playing the game. Oh yeah, Tommy C. And, he kind of going along with her the whole time. And then he finally just loses it. Papier Mache. What is Papier Mache? Samuel. I love when George just starts to lose it. And then he goes into the, "It's not you, it's me" stuff. And then, she's like, "How much do I owe?" He's like, "Oh, don't worry." And then he, $4. He throws that at the end. Of course, piggybacking off the cheap thing. Of course, George is going to ask for the money after the meal. I just love that scene. It's George at his best in both cases, right? Kind of playing along with the intelligent woman there who's really pretentious. He's going along with it the whole time, and then finally he just snaps and has to just let out the real George and be like, I can't take this anymore. Like, who the hell are you? What's with the chopsticks? The whole thing. It's so much more. He just starts losing it. So that's my first up there. Kind of sets the tone for the rest of the episode.
Good scene there with George and his girlfriend Patrice. So yeah, thanks, Tony. Chris, back to you. What do you have for your second up?
Second up, you got to go. We talked about this with her, Siobhan Fallon. The whole Kramer dancing scene, the African music, that relationship. I mean, obviously, we meet Siobhan for the first time on Seinfeld, of course. Incredible comedian, friend of the show, as you know. But and she talked about how hard Kramer worked on that, and how I believe like her father was upset that Kramer's walking around in town, a little uncomfortable for the father. These Irish Catholics. So for me, is the Kramer dancing with Tina, and then them on the couch together, the whole thing, and obviously it just sets Elaine off. And I was always interested, and I didn't get to it, but I would always thought the backstory. Like, they obviously met through Elaine somehow, but that was always something that fascinated me. It was just like they were just all of a sudden dating, you know. But that was one of my favorite K-Man girlfriends for sure. And the dancing was just something as memorable as it gets. The physical comedy, obviously, Michael Richards took to another level in season 3 early on. Great to see.
It would have been funny to see a more on-off relationship with Kramer and Tina throughout the years. But anyway, we got great appearances from Siobhan anyway. So Tony, over to you. What's your second up?
Great call out. That's where I thought he was going with his first one, but he used it on his second one. I said this is my last. You gave 2 ups already, so I'm going to go a little broad on this one. But I thought I just touched on this. I mean, great Kramer. It's also a great Elaine episode. I love, Kramer saw me naked. The whole thing with Jerry and everything. This is cutesy Elaine that we talk about at her best, in my opinion. With the whole Siobhan, as O'Hara mentioned. But really, my next up is Jerry. I thought Jerry had a great episode too. I was thinking only of the poor Krakatoans. With Elaine, the whole thing there, and right now, when George Costanza, the whole thing with this is no good. This is no good. I must use that line every day of my life since I've seen this episode. I pretty much use that line on a daily basis. This is no good. This is no good. I just love it. Why would she? George is all like, don't worry about it. George's like, what? Don't worry about it. He told her the truth. And then the whole word association game, tuberculosis, Jerry throws out there. I use that all the time. Just so much packed into this episode. I thought Jerry did a great job, though. I think, just to tie in, it's still Jerry, but the stand-up stuff. This is early on where the stand-up actually ties in to the episode. After Elaine, says Kramer saw him naked, Jerry gives a great stand-up bit of his when want pockets, belt in a pocket when you're naked. It's give you something to do. I always love that stand-up bit by Jerry, so I'll throw that on top of Jerry. I just thought this was a great Jerry episode. I just love his the Krakatoan lines, the "this is no good" lines. I would strangle this man. Then Kramer sneaks out of the room after George. But that's my second up on the truth is Jerry.
Thank you, Tony. So that wraps up the ups. So let's begin with the downs. And Chris, what's your first down here?
Interesting. Some of the downs I had are weaving into Tony's ups. So, he did make some good Jerry points, but I have a start here. Jerry really annoying about his papers. Like, what about my papers? He just goes on and on and on about it. I think it wasn't as tight. Again, this is early second episode of season 3, and I just think it was too much with the papers and the audit talk. Like, it just went on a little too long. Like him and Kramer going through his papers and the volcano thing. I don't know. And then Tony mentioned, oh, don't worry about it to George. Like, this is the only woman in America that could fix his problem. You just go down the street, H&R Block or whatever it was at that time, and they'll take care of you. So I don't know. I thought Jerry was a little annoying at some points here. He mentioned the good points, some solid points. I'm not going to kill that, but on and on about the papers and the papers. But I did like Valerie. Oh, you're the Jerome. So some decent Jerry, but him just dragging on the papers. I think those, like that early scene, just stretched a little too long for me. First down.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Tony, what do you got for your first down?
Yeah, another line I missed on Jerry that I love is Kramer, who's welcome to my house, but as far as Mr. Johnson's concerned, great Jerry. Hey, O'Hara's tough but fair. Now he's going on Jerry a little bit. I like it. I had very little downs written down on this one. I say that a lot, especially season 3. But my first down is a Jerry, and so I'll piggyback a little bit there because I don't think he mentioned this one. My cousin Douglas came over the house. There was no soda. Where's the Pepsi? Where's the Pepsi? He starts freaking out. It's just such a silly, stupid thing. I mean, of all the things, I know that's the point of it. It's supposed to be a silly, stupid thing, but I don't know. I never liked that line, that little quick thing there where Jerry's just like, came over the house. There was no soda. Where's the Pepsi? Where's the Pepsi? He loses his mind. Kind of a silly down, but listen, that's what we do here, and I got to be fair on this one. I didn't love it, and so that's my first down.
Yeah, that was kind of, just a strange story to say in this episode, but yeah, so good down. Chris, over to you. What's your second down?
Yeah, I got two written down there. I think he's going to take this one. It's his theme usually, so I'll lay off it. But I'm going to go back to one of his likes. He mentioned the George opening scene, but what was interesting was it was kind of a scene split in two, and that's kind of my problem. Like just the pacing of this, that the beginning scene, I just didn't like. It wasn't tight, and believe me, season three is tight, as good as it gets. So that's why this one, and we'll get there when we get there. But the slow start, obviously the Mache stuff, but and then it just translated into Jerry and Kramer with the receipts, and that went on too long. And then they went back to the diner. To Tony's points, and he bundled those, thinking it was once. I know he didn't know they were one scene, but as a scene. But I thought they could have just went right to that, like son of a boom. He break up with her right there, you know, and then obviously we always love when he goes back to Jerry's apartment and he discusses what happened. And that could have happened right after that long scene when they were going through all the papers. So it was just a little disjointed. Um, I'm not going to knock Sharon. So I'll probably knock the editor here,
Well,
Janet.
it was Steinberg. That might be
Oh,
why.
Steinberg. All right. So, yeah, yeah, look at that. So yeah, tell my own story here. This wouldn't happen with Sharonis. Of course, Steinberg's welcome to the show anytime, but it's little things like that, you know, that make this show what it was. I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice that he was the director. Of course, I mentioned it. I already forgot. But the point is, I'm a Sharonis guy through and through, and I think that's what happened here. Something was a little off. So that opening scene, a little long, not concise. Was something off about it.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Good stuff there. So over to you, Tony. Wrap us up with your final down here.
Yeah, I mean that's O'Hara for you. He knew why he didn't like it. It wasn't Sharonis. That's what I was going to say. Why when he was given that down, it seemed like a Steinberg thing, kind of that pacing, like he talked about. I didn't mind it as much. I didn't mind the cut up there. It kind of showed both angles of George, like I mentioned in my up, but I see where he's going with it. And listen, I know Pink Hats love to get on our case. This is one that I think it sounds like, you know, for everything, all O'Hara's downs are why I think Pink Hats don't like the early seasons. Something to do with pacing, maybe a little bit too slow, a little drawn out, more dialogue than anything else, longer scenes. These are all early staples of early season Seinfeld. But we'll get to grades in a minute. My second down is I don't know where he thinks I was going with this. I'd love to hear if I hit it because I didn't have a lot of downs written down. So the only one I wrote down here is I think it's another one of these, and this is a early season thing they did a lot as well. Kind of may have been notes from NBC. Maybe they just thought that's what they're supposed to do, but a very sitcom-y ending at the end. All take a cab together. They at the end there, they're all kind of getting ready to leave, and Kramer's going to the hospital, and she's going uptown, 48th Street. They take the cab together at the end, and then you're chipping in to George, the whole thing. Again, a little bit of a sitcom-y ending ties the whole thing together. We like the bigger kind of punch endings with a Dolores or those types of things, or just not as sitcom-y-ish. But early on, this we're going to get maybe that's a Steinberg thing too. I don't know, but that's my second down.
Thank you, Tony. All right, so let's wrap up with your final thoughts and grade. So, Chris, back to you. What do you have for us?
Well, I thought Tony was going to end with we wanted more. Like I actually wrote, could have used more Tina and Kramer. I thought he was going to say could have used a little more Kramer. Tony loves doing that in these early seasons. The little poke at George on cheapness. I think that was a nice little bow on it, based on my up about careful with money. But anyway. The Truth, season 3 again. This is it gets difficult when it's your favorite season. It's like where do I put this? And yeah, Tony mentioned the pink hat. That doesn't that phases pink hats. It won't phase me here. I think good writing is good writing. An interesting episode. Listen, there was only 2 guest stars. I love when they kind of limit it in these early years. Patrice, I thought was fantastic. Very underrated. The hospital, why are you breaking up with me? The whole thing. Tina, forget about it. We know her, incredible. Um, all four were really solid. Um, Again, I struggle with some of these. I'm like, who stole the show in this episode, right? I've been talking about this recently on a lot of these two ups. It's everyone's pretty, Elaine's really good, right? The relationship with Kramer. Jerry's kind of quarterbacking. George, um, George is George, of course. Kramer, I said he left you wanting more, but the physical comedy, just his reaction and how wild Tina is, the whole thing, all good. Um, Written by Elaine Pope, no Sharonis. I'm sure Larry David has his fingerprints all over this. I'm dancing around here looking for a grade. I got 2 grades down. I'm just gonna. I have two. I'm gonna go the middle. We're gonna solid B. Solid B for the truth. Believe me, you never turn it off. Everything in season 3 is an all timer. But to be fair, I'm gonna go just a clean B. I had B plus. I was close, but we're gonna stick with the B.
Get behind you on that grade there. So good analysis there. Tony, over to you. What do you got for your final thoughts? Grade, hit us.
Yeah. Can't argue that. Listen, I mentioned this at the top. What was on TV at the time when this aired? When season 3 was on, was Doogie Howser, the Fat Man. I mean, this shows that we were. And if you were, I mean, I watched TV. That's all I did from 1987 to 1995. Like it just you watch TV. There's nothing else. Click on your hand. Prime time. What's on? And it was all just the same weird. Just Home Improvement. That's all. This show came on. This was like nothing else. And the truth is one of those that sits in my head for that reason. And maybe I'm letting that keeps coming back every time. This episode is like, it's like a comfort food, you say, or something like that. I mean, this episode's got it all. The Siobhan O'Grady, the darkness in the apartment, the dancing, like O'Hara mentioned, the windshield. I thought there was a lot of Kramer there. You're the Jerome with the tax problem, as O'Hara mentioned. I like this episode more than maybe I should in a weird way. But I'm not going too high, although I did write down, I got it into almost, I'm going a little higher than O'Hara. I'm going to go with the Grady. I'm giving the truth a B plus. I thought about an A minus. I thought it was good. I really thought hard about an A minus, but I think there's a lot more in season 3. As O'Hara mentions, if you start comparing it within the season, this isn't going to make it A range. He made great points. It's just not enough people pushing this up. George is still doing a little bit of Woody Allen. I think Jerry's Jerry. I think Elaine delivers, and I think, as you mentioned, Siobhan and the chopsticks chick, Papier and Mache, are both solid. Just a great, quick, just good season 3 episode. B plus for the truth.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Chris, for those insights. And we appreciate everybody tuning in to watch us, and we'll see everybody on our next episode.